A rain-soaked street, a white cop's voice barking orders, and a black woman standing tall, her eyes blazing with defiance. In a split second, everything flips when she reveals a truth, so shocking it stops the officer dead in his tracks. White cop forces black woman to kneel, then freezes when she reveals she's a U.S. colonel, is a pulse-pounding tale of power, prejudice, and redemption that will grip you from the first word. Don't miss out. Subscribe now to join thousands across the U.S. and U.K. diving into this electrifying story, and let's unravel its jaw-dropping twist together. The rain pounded the asphalt of a quiet suburban street in Crestwood, Ohio, turned the road into a slick mirror under the sodium glow of streetlights. Officer Daniel Hargrove, a grizzled 10-year veteran of the Crestwood Police Department, leaned against his cruiser, his uniform damp, his breath fogging in the late autumn chill. His radio crackled faintly, dispatching units to a disturbance across town, but Hargrove's focus was locked on the figure standing 20 feet away, a black woman mid-40s, in a tailored trench coat, her posture rigid, her hands clenched at her sides. She hadn't budged since he'd ordered her to stop, and that defiance set his nerves on edge. "Ma'am," he barked, his voice slicing through the rain. "I said get on your knees, hand behind your head. Now." His hand hovered near his holster, fingers twitching, not out of fear, but because her unflinching stare unnerved him in a way he couldn't name. The woman, Dr. Vanessa Clayton, stood motionless, rain dripping from her hood. Her dark eyes met Hargrove's with a quiet intensity that made his stomach twist. She wasn't just any civilian. Vanessa was a U.S. Army colonel, a decorated officer with 22 years of service, a woman who'd faced insurgents in Fallujah and negotiated with warlords in Kandahar. Yet here in her hometown, she was being told to kneel like a criminal. The irony burned, but she didn't flinch. She'd learned that power lay in presence, not volume. "Officer," she said, her voice calm, almost too calm, "you're making a mistake." Hargrove's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being challenged, not like this. His partner, Officer Ryan Kessler, a rookie with barely a year on the force, stood nearby, his hand near his weapon, his young face taut with uncertainty. The air crackled, a single wrong move away from ignition. It began 20 minutes earlier with a 911 call about a suspicious individual near the Crestwood Community Center. Hargrove and Kessler, the closest unit, rolled up to find Vanessa by her SUV. Phone pressed her ear. She'd been coordinating a veterans outreach event, her first project since returning from a tour in Germany. The caller, a nervous neighbor, described a woman loitering, and Hargrove, on edge from recent thefts, assumed trouble. The SUV, expensive, out of place in this working-class area, raised his suspicions. When Vanessa didn't immediately comply with his order to step away, his instincts screamed danger. Now, as rain soaked his uniform, he doubled down. "I'm not asking again," he said, voice rising. "On your knees or we do this the hard way." Vanessa's mind raced, but her body stayed still. She knew the stakes: black woman, white cop, a rainy street. She'd seen the headlines, lived the reality. But she was Colonel Vanessa Clayton, Ph.D., Legion of Merit recipient, a commander who'd stared down death. Kneeling wasn't in her nature unless she chose it. Yet escalation was dangerous. Her military training taught her to read people, and Hargrove's eyes betrayed fear beneath his authority. "Officer," she said, voice steady, "I'm reaching for my ID." Slowly, her hand moved toward her coat pocket, deliberate, controlled. Hargrove tensed, hand on his gun. "Don't move," he shouted. Kessler shifted, unsure. The moment hung like a taut wire. Vanessa paused, then spoke, her voice cutting through the rain. "My name is Colonel Vanessa Clayton, United States Army. I'm not your suspect." Hargrove froze, his hand still on his holster. The word colonel hit like a shockwave. Kessler's eyes widened, his grip loosening. Hargrove's face twitched, disbelief, then doubt. "Bullshit," he muttered, but his voice wavered. Vanessa's gaze didn't falter. "Check my ID," she said, nodding toward her pocket. "It's in there, along with my military credentials." Hargrove hesitated, rain streaming down his face. He motioned to Kessler, who stepped forward, retrieved the wallet, and opened it. There was a U.S. Army ID, rank colonel, alongside a driver's license and a Department of Defense card. Kessler's voice shook as he read aloud. Colonel Vanessa L. Clayton, active duty. Hargrove's world tilted. He'd been a cop a decade, prided himself on reading situations, but this was a miscalculation of cosmic proportions. His mind scrambled for footing. You're still loitering, he said, grasping for control, but his tone lacked conviction. Vanessa's lips curved, not a smile but challenge. Loitering? I'm on public property, organizing an event for veterans at that community center. You want to arrest me for serving my country. The words landed like a slap. Kessler, now pale, handed her wallet back. Hargrove's hand dropped from his gun, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. Step back to the vehicle, he ordered, softer now, uncertain. Vanessa complied, moving deliberately, her eyes never leaving Hargrove's. She senses unraveling, the cracks in his authority. But this wasn't just about him. It was about every time she'd been profiled, every assumption she'd faced as a black woman in a world quick to judge. She'd fought those battles quietly, rising through the ranks, earning respect in rooms where she was the only one like her. Yet here in Crestwood, she was just another suspect. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and a small crowd had gathered, neighbors, phones out, recording. Hargrove noticed, his jaw tightening. He hated being watched, judged. We're not done here, he said, but his voice was hollow. Then came the twist. A black sedan pulled up, lights off, windows tinted. Two men in suits stepped out, their badges glinting under the streetlights. Colonel Clayton, one called, his voice clipped, professional. Vanessa nodded, her expression unreadable. Agent Brooks, NSIS. The man said, flashing a badge, "We need you at Wright-Patterson, ma'am." "Yes, sir." Hargrove's mouth went dry. NCIS? Wright-Patterson Air Force Base? This wasn't just a colonel. This was someone with pull. The second agent, a woman, eyed Hargrove. "Problem here, officer?" Hargrove stammered. "Just a routine stop." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Routine? You're detaining a senior officer involved in a classified operation. Stand down." The crowd murmured, phone still rolling. Hargrove's face burned, his authority crumbling. Kessler looked like he wanted to vanish. Vanessa, calm as ever, spoke. "I'll go with NCIS. Officer Hargrove, I suggest you review your protocols." She turned to the sedan, then paused, looking back. "And next time, ask questions before you demand someone kneel." She slid into the car, and it pulled away, leaving Hargrove in the rain, the crowd's whispers echoing. But the story didn't end there. Hargrove's mistake wasn't random. The 911 call hadn't come from a nervous neighbor. It was a setup. Weeks earlier, Vanessa had uncovered corruption at a defense contractor tied to Wright-Patterson, a company skimming funds meant for veterans programs. Her investigation, part of her role in a joint task force, had rattled powerful people. The call was a calculated move to humiliate her, to paint her as a threat, to derail her work. The contractor CEO, a man named Richard Langley, had connections in Crestwood, including a cousin in the mayor's office. Langley's plan was simple: discredit Vanessa, scare her off. He hadn't counted on her resilience, or the NCIS agents tailing her for protection. Back at the station, Hargrove faced his captain, a no-nonsense woman named Torres. The viral video of the stop was already spreading, tagged #CrestwoodColonel. Torres didn't mince words. "You profiled a U.S. colonel, Danny. You're lucky she didn't escalate this to a federal complaint." Hargrove, defensive, argued he was following protocol. "She didn't comply," he said. Torres cut him off. "She's a soldier, not a suspect. You assumed. That's on you." Hargrove was suspended, pending review, his career teetering. But the real blow came when he learned the 911 call was anonymous, untraceable, and likely deliberate. Doubt crept in had he been played. Vanessa, meanwhile, was at Wright-Patterson, briefing a room of brass on the contractor's fraud. The NCIS agents confirmed the call's origin tied to Langley's network. Vanessa's investigation gained traction, but so did the risks. Langley, desperate, doubled down, leaking doctor photos to local media, painting Vanessa as a radical threatening national security. The smear campaign backfired when veterans rallied online, sharing her record medals, missions, lives saved. Hashtag Colonel Clayton trended, drowning out the lies. Hargrove, off duty, watched the coverage, his suspension gnawing at him. He'd been a pawn, his biases exploited. For the first time, he questioned his instincts. The final twist came when Vanessa returned to Crestwood. She could have let Hargrove drown in his mistake, but she didn't. At a community meeting, she faced him in the crowd, the cameras. "This isn't about one officer," she said. "It's about systems. Systems that fail when we don't question them." She proposed a training program, led by veterans, to bridge gaps between police and communities. Hargrove, there reluctantly, met her eyes. He expected anger but saw resolve. "I was wrong," he said, voice low, the words costing him. Vanessa nodded. "Learn from it." The program launched. Langley was indicted, and Crestwood began to heal, one hard conversation at a time.